get ready.
This is the voice of Wayne America.
Lighten up, Francis.
With your host,
Hi-ho, Kermit the Frog here.
Mike Carnes.
How do you measure yourself with other golfers?
By height.
Only at WayneAmerica.com.
The supernova's gonna kill us all.
Okay, this guy is the real zero, that's true. Let's just think back when you guys were freshmen, huh?
.com.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Voice of Wayne America podcast here on WayneAmerica.com. I'm Mike Carnes, and we're here to talk about everything going on in Wayne, best town in all of America. That's right here in Wayne, America. And we want to thank our sponsors at Providence Medical Center for their support of the podcast. It's the it's the first week of 2019. We're 2 days into it already, and the Wayne City Council usually meets on the first Tuesday of the month, but of course New Year's Day falling on a Tuesday this year, and the City Council decided to move their meeting back one day, and so they held their meeting on Wednesday night at the City Council chambers, and we're trying to guess right now whether this podcast goes longer than the meeting itself did. The meeting was a rather quick one last night, only lasted about 15-20 minutes, so we're here with Mayor Cale Giese, who's going to talk with us about all things city government, and we're going to try to make this a regular occurrence here on the Voice of Wayne America podcast. Mr. Mayor, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
You bet. Short meeting Tuesday night, only a few items on the agenda. I guess it's kind of nice when you have meetings like that where you don't have a lot to go over.
Yeah, it's nice, but on the same side, you want to be getting stuff done. We've got the council retreat coming up here in a couple weeks, so we're just kind of floating along until we have that retreat. We set our new goals for the next year and then start chipping away at achieving those. Yeah. So just kind of treading water here for the time being.
Yeah. Well, the meeting Tuesday night, there's, like I said, a few items on the agenda. I know one that's probably most prevalent right now, considering the time of the year. There was a couple of ordinances regarding snow removal in the city, and I know one was basically kind of a language cleanup for the snowplow alert. And then the other one regarding keeping the streets clean, and I know that's an issue for some people who are in certain locations where the city cleans the streets and dumps the snow, and sometimes the gravel and the ice melt come with it and kind of leave stuff in their yard. But let's talk about the snowplow alert first off. That's just kind of more or less a cleanup of things, and I think with last week's storm having ice and snow along with it, probably a good idea to clean that part of the language up a little bit.
Yeah, so this is just changing terminology. Snowplow alert lets you know that there are snowplows out there and be careful, but I think we're switching to winter weather advisory. So the snowplows being out there is implied along with all the other dangers, whether that be ice on power lines that are down or whatever, just the massive amounts of snow, or a combination of the two, like we saw this last storm. Yeah. So.
How did things go with this last storm as far as city crews and everything?
Everything sounded good to me. I mean, the guys are always battling. Somebody comes down with the flu or whatever, so we're shorthanded. But it's that time of year where you're battling both the weather and the things that you're battling when you're inside from the weather.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know we had an instance, I think Wednesday, I think it was either Wednesday or Thursday, where the State Patrol actually pulled their plows off the road for about 6 or 7 hours just because of the winds were so bad that it was just making it impossible for them to keep up with the roads.
Yeah, we got really lucky. I thought for sure we were going to have to run the generators and supply power for the town. Just the whole day it seemed like those power lines were just swinging back and forth, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's just a matter of time, But no, we got lucky. Never had to run them, and I think the power only blinked like 1 or 2 times. So yeah, that's really good.
Now the other snow-related ordinance, which had third reading waived, and it's now passed into law, regards keeping the streets clean and kind of cleaning up the language on that. I know that some people, and I'm one of them, some people who live along the alleys, when the city comes in and moves the snow out of the alleys, a lot of times they will just push it across the street and right into somebody's yard. And there's stuff that comes along with the snow, gravel and some of the other stuff. And when that snow melts, it kind of leaves a little deposit there in the front yard in that terrace area. And it's something that I guess I was not aware of and was made aware of at the meeting tonight, that the city actually has ownership of that terrace at the front between the sidewalk and the and the street, which I guess I was not aware of.
Yep, that's what allows us to run gas lines, electrical lines, water lines, and everything else down that portion. You know, the section from the street to the sidewalk that's owned by the city but maintained by the residents. So you got to work to maintain it, but you don't get to claim ownership of it. And what this ordinance is, you know, kept clean is kind of one of our catch-all ordinances that we use. It's what keeps it illegal for if you're driving down the street with a pickup full of sand and you dump the sand out the box in the middle of Main Street. That's illegal. You got to keep the streets clean. Same thing where what we've been running into lately is a safety issue of when we get these huge snows, and you hire your parking lot to be cleaned out, and the guy comes in with his truck and pushes it all the way across the street into the neighbor's yard and dumps it on the neighbor's terrace. Well, that's illegal. You got to keep the snow that comes from your driveway needs to go on your terrace or your yard, and that prevents your neighbor from getting snow backed up, pushed onto his sidewalk that he has to clear, and it also prevents. I don't know, the last time we got like that 17 inches of snow, and we had a lot of like gas stations, I'm thinking of one in particular right now, that they had it kind of stacked up on the terraces around, fire hydrants, which is its own problem, but also just the intersections where you couldn't see a car coming because there was snow piled up in the terraces. And this caps that at, I think you get 30 inches of snow within the line of sights of intersections. And once again, all these things are just safety things that you don't think of until it happens. Mm-hmm. But after those blizzards, those are the things that, keep the situation dangerous far longer than it should be. You got blind intersections and stuff out there that people are already having trouble stopping, and then you add in a line of sight issue, and it compounds that problem. Yeah.
Now, if when the snow melts and that stuff is left behind in people's yard, the city will come and clean that up. Is that correct?
Yeah, we had a little discussion tonight just clarifying that. And if you are one of those houses that are lucky enough to have the snowplows coming down a straight line and dumping off, maybe I should back up a second. Whenever you have a snow, you have the snowplows come through and they throw the snow up onto your yard and driveway. And then they lay down the de-icer and they put down gravel to help people stop, gravel and sand. And then they'll come by, and once that starts to chip away, they'll scrape that all up, and you get a nice little second round of slush piled on top.
Right.
If you're one of those houses that's lucky enough that you get dumped on all the time with all that gravel and sand, you can call the city if there starts to be a major accumulation there of gravel and have them come in and pick that up. I mean, we're more than willing to do that. It's just part of being a good neighbor. Mm-hmm. So yeah, just make a phone call in the city hall and say, hey, I'm getting a lot of gravel into this snow. That way, when it melts, you're not left with a gravel dune, hanging out in your front yard.
Trying to mow over that thing one time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I can speak from experience on that. Last year we had a bunch of gravel and sand and stuff that wound up in that terrace in my front yard, and I was able to call the city, and they were able to come in and take care of it. They did a fantastic job of doing that there. In fact, I didn't even see him come in. I went somewhere to get something to eat, and when I came back, all of a sudden my yard was semi green and brown again. So, which is about as good as it gets in my yard. So. Unless there's a run of rain. So one of the other things that we wanted to talk about was the agreement between the city and Big Rivers Electric Corporation, which will basically lock in some rates there for the next 8 years. I think people remember there was some controversy about Wayne opting out of an agreement with Nebraska Public Power District a few years ago, and that was kind of phased out. And this is the first year that we're fully working fully with Big Rivers Electric Corporation on the purchase of electricity and that sort of thing. So talk a little bit about what this agreement means for the city for the next 8 years for that.
Yeah, so what this agreement is since we have our own generating capacity, our diesel generators here on the south side of town, we get paid for the right for the company to call up and tell us to run those generators, and they pay us for our production potential. And like right now, I think we're stuck at $1.50, and
That's $1.50 per kilowatt hour.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's negotiated year to year, and the thought is you don't know what the electrical market's going to do. It's a crazy market, and little fluctuations result in huge dollar amounts just because of the amount of electricity that the town purchases. Mm-hmm. And so what we've opted to do here in this agreement is lock out a little bit of that risk. We're not going to negotiate year to year. We're going to lock in the rest of our contract with them in exchange for taking a higher rate guaranteed. So this is a little bit of risk management. We're giving up a little bit of that upside, but hoping that the sure deal, it allows us to budget a little bit easier. I think it's a good thing. You're looking at the subsidization of wind power and everything else in the country. Coal has been not as regulated under this administration as it was under the Obama administration, so that's kind of driving energy prices down too, as a whole across the market. So looking at that, it just seems like take the money and run right now. We got, I think we're currently $1.50 for the capacity. We're going up to $2 for the next 4 years. That's going to net us $100-some thousand a year. And then after that 4 years, we get an automatic bump up to $250. So that'll be another increase of significant dollars. It helps us run our power plant, keep it maintained. And that's the important part. We need to have our generation capacity intact as a negotiating tactic after this contract is over in 10 years to make sure that we get the best deal going forward.
Right. Now, how often does the city run the generator when we're talking about electrical usage?
Not very often, just for demand, because diesel is really expensive. So the only time they call us is when they're in desperate need, or transmission line strategically goes out. That's the only other time that they call us and tell us to run.
Okay.
Which is good because we want to keep the run time down on those things.
Sure. Yeah, because diesel costs. While gas prices have gone down, diesel costs are not following that.
Yeah, and we got old equipment. It's expensive to run, and we're on the hook for the maintenance of those things. So the less we run them, the less problems we have, and the better off we are long term. Yeah.
We're talking with Wayne Mayor Cale Giese here on the Voice of Wayne America podcast, and I want to take a moment to talk about Providence Medical Center in Wayne. They have announced the addition of a new surgical procedure that they now offer at the hospital called shoulder arthroscopy. The surgical procedure is for those who have rotator cuff injuries, where the surgeon inserts a tiny camera and the necessary instruments through small incisions in the shoulder, rather than doing an open procedure with a large incision. Dr. Joseph Caro specializes in orthopedic surgery for Providence Medical Center. He is the team physician for Wayne State Athletics and also offers his expertise at multiple high schools here in the area. For more information, check out Providence Medical Center's website at www.providencemedical.com. That's Providence Medical Center, extraordinary care rooted in compassion. Going over the meeting from Wednesday night of the Wayne City Council here on the Voice of Wayne America with Mayor Cale Giese, and we want to also talk about a couple other things, just some small items on the agenda there. I go back to my notes here. I'm sorry about that. The Country Club Clubhouse Improvement Project. There was a payment made on that project, and from what I have not had a chance to get out there and look at it lately, but I understand that that is looking pretty good.
Yeah, it's really coming along out there. And Jill Broderson, she's the architect on this project, so she kind of gives us the inside track all the time. And she's happy with the work that's being done. Me, with my terrible or lack of eye for construction, looks really nice. The windows looking out as you drive by on the highway, you're going to have a nice view up there.
Yeah. Now, how's your golf game? Is your golf game
terrible?
Is it as bad as your building expertise?
I'd probably trust me with a golf club more than a hammer if I'm working on anything important structurally. But that's not saying much. I use my grandfather's old clubs, and I think he's like 6 inches shorter than me. Uh-huh. So they're wrong size. They're outdated.
So you probably need to upgrade a little bit.
But then I do that, and then I don't have anything to blame my bad game on. You know.
Oh, there's other things you can trust me. I've got a lot of things I can blame my golf game on.
I don't want to go all the way down to like the dew point or something. You know. Not that I'm above it.
For me, it's just my presence on the golf course. That's where the problems start right there. So another thing, there was the first resolution of the year. Which was to accept the work on the 2nd Street Storm Sewer Improvement Project. That was something that was done this summer and into early fall, I believe, and seemed like that went pretty well. I know the west side of 2nd Street there off of Main was closed down for a while, and then the east side got its turn there, but it looks like it all turned out pretty well.
Yeah, this fixes up a lot of drainage issues that we've had after the new bank went in there, the State Nebraska Bank. We had some drainage issues come in, and this cleans those up. Whenever you do a project like this with those old areas of town and you tear into the street, you don't know what you're going to find. Mm-hmm. So, of course, it's full of change orders and things. You know, the engineer has no idea what he's bidding. You know, when he's telling you how much it's going to cost. So that's frustrating. But boy, are you glad when you're done and you get a few things cleaned up when you're in there. I think there was one thing the engineer said, like, they could not find where this drain went to. So they just assumed it was still live and left it there, but there was some pipe running down through Main Street and then nobody has any idea what it is or where it drains from or whatever. So I don't know. That just gives you an idea of what they deal with on those older projects. But yeah, looks good, and move on to the next one, I guess. That's the one we tore up right after Chicken Days.
Yeah. Yeah, it was right after Chicken Days that got done. They got that done in pretty good time too, because
yeah, all things considered, pretty good project.
Yeah. Now, are there any other streets that are going to be looked at as far as that goes, or?
Not the older parts. We are going to be redoing Nebraska Street. So Wyndham Street kind of got a big facelift, widen the road out. This won't be quite that extensive, but it will be a new street. Mm-hmm. So that'll be the next big street project we do. Some of those older parts of town getting, older neighborhoods getting the new streets put in because they've been suffering with some rundown stuff for a little while. So.
Yeah. And also, City Attorney Amy Miller was given approval to stay on the city's health insurance for 2 months, and that's just kind of I think a safety thing for her and her family with her taking on the role of the county attorney. She's now the county attorney and the city attorney, which would be an interesting juggling act for her, I'm sure. But she will go on the county's health insurance as of March 1st, so it's kind of just a 2-month extension of her time on the city's health.
Yeah, misunderstanding on behalf of her and the county and us. We thought she was going to be jumping on the county insurance right away, right when she signed on, but apparently that does not happen until March. So there was going to be a gap in her coverage, and you know, when you have employees for the city, you want to make sure that they're covered and healthy. So City Council unanimously passed to keep her on insurance until she has the chance to switch over March 1st.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about that. I talked with her afterward about is there a conflict of interest there if she's a city attorney and the county attorney, and I guess the only time that would really come up if there was an issue where the city and the county could not come to an agreement on something. I guess at that point, how does she juggle that?
Then she outsources counsel. So I think the understanding she has right now is somebody like Eric Knutson's going to come in and handle that for her. You know, whenever there's one of those weird conflicts of interest. But I've had a couple of people express concerns to me about her being both, but I don't think they realize that Mike Pieper was the county and the city attorney for like 20 years, 25 years or something.
And wasn't he also a school board attorney at the same time?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, so he was juggling a lot of balls there with.
Yeah, so it's not an uncommon practice. It just, as soon as it stops happening and then you have different ones, people's minds kind of reset and then they jump back to being the same one. You're like, whoa, this doesn't seem right. And it's like, yeah, no, it's very common practice.
Yeah, and she was, I think, first brought on by Mayor Ken Chamberlain. And then obviously, as mayor, you're keeping her on as city attorney. Obviously, she's done a very good job for the city in that regard.
Yeah, even when Pieper was our city attorney, she was the one that was at the vast majority of the meetings. When she wasn't there, Eric Knudsen was there. I think they were acting as deputy attorneys at that time. So when she left Pieper, it kind of made sense from a city standpoint to have her come along, because she had all that knowledge through all the police firings and everything else. So yeah, I'm very happy with her work. She's good, responsive. It's nice having an attorney on staff too, because then you can fire her questions all the time, and you don't have to worry like, oh gosh, should I send this email because it's going to cost $25 just to send this email, you know? And that's the situation you get into with a lot of attorneys in different situations.
Yeah. So that's going to do it for this meeting. The next meeting we'll be back on Tuesdays and 15th.
Yes, back to the regular schedule. For anybody who's got an item that they'd like to discuss or a problem with the city, get a hold of the City Hall or me or one of your council members. We've got our retreat coming up, as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. And that's where we set our goals for the year, where we tackle problems, look at challenges, things we're going to be facing in the next 5, 10, 20 years. Small, big, get a hold of us. Love to hear from you.
All right, and phone number and email?
375-1733 for the city, 369-2145 for me.
Okay.
Or you can reach me at cgiese@cityofwayne.org. I don't ever email myself at the city, so or you can get a hold of all the information for contact info is on the city website. So
all right. Well, we've been talking with Mayor Cale Giese here on the Voice of Wayne America podcast, and for the record, this podcast did last longer than the city council meeting tonight. We were able to stretch it out a little longer than meetings there. So we'll try to see if we can beat that again next time around.
Let's get creative talking. Then.
Yeah, we'll come up with some other stuff. Well, thanks a lot for talking with us this week. We look forward to talking to you 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, glad to be here.
All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Voice of Wayne America podcast here on WayneAmerica.com. Have yourselves a good one. We will talk to you later with another edition of the Voice of Wayne America podcast right here on WayneAmerica.com. Until then, see you later.